Okay, we're now recording. So today we are talking about compensation. And as you saw, that was chapter 8 in the Dessler book. It was chapter 5 in the American Management Association. I don't know which one you guys are reading. I'll take a guess that it's neither, which is not very good. But next semester things are going to get a lot more strict. So you guys are pretty lucky. As the first Zoom semester, we have to be a little bit, forgiving. But next semester will be a lot more strict, I think. So I put up one video about compensation, but if you watched it, you know that only covers really the first half of it. So I think we might get past there today, but I'll still produce or make the other video to continue this subject. So with compensation, let me share my screen. Okay, so far in this course, we are currently at week 11. So we have about a month left, a little more, month in a review. And we've already covered the introduction to HR. We covered the basic laws that are important in HR, and we covered strategic HR. That was the introduction, those first three. Then we covered recruitment, selection, training, and evaluation. And now we're on our last one of the center 5, which is compensation. And those 5 are kind of the foundation of HRM, which we call staffing. That's staffing. And then after that, after this subject, so this subject has 2 parts. It has this part, which is compensation about salaries, and it has the next part, which is about benefits and incentives. And then after that, we'll see what we get to in terms of unions. I don't usually teach in this class, but health and safety and fairness. Usually I'll teach fairness first, and then we'll see how far we get into health and safety. I believe there's a couple of people who actually, I think, haven't done presentations, but everybody here has, right? Looks to me like everybody here has. So we don't have to worry about that.
I haven't done presentation.
Who?
Landry.
Landry. Okay, so Landry, you still need to do it. I mean, there's a couple of other people who haven't. Jonathan hasn't, Harry hasn't. So we got to get it done. So I can make a group. I don't know if Rodrigo is in this class anymore. Can't tell. But Landry
did it with me, the first presentation.
I'm sorry?
Rodrigo did the first presentation with me.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll double check on that. Anais is here too. Who else? Anybody else just come? No. Okay. Well, Landry, before the class ends today, let's see if anybody else comes who hasn't done it. If not, you might have to do a presentation by yourself. We'll see. Okay, so compensating employees. Well, no more presentations for now. I didn't have you do these assignments. Carter Cleaning Company, though, we could do that. We haven't done that yet. So, okay, let's do the Carter Cleaning Company exercise. I will share that. Cleaning company. Seven. Oh, 8. Okay, let's make sure this is the right one. No, it's The new training program. Okay, sorry, it's number 6. Okay, here it is. So take a look at that. It should say the incentive plan. Okay, so we're back now, and you've all read this, and so we have 2 questions. One is this the kind of compensation system that Jennifer and her father should use for employees? And 2, what should we do for the managers? So for the employees right now, there's a problem. Either they get paid by the hour, or they get paid piecemeal, is what we call it, piecemeal, which is they get paid by the number of products they do. So what's the problem, Juan, with paying them by the hour?
Yeah, we were talking about the first question, because if he's paid by the hour, well, he finishes his things, but like he doesn't get the necessary wage like he wants. But we were talking that if he gets the number of toppings of tops, he would just, the quality would just reduce, you know, because he wouldn't care about the quality, only about the quantity of how many he does.
Okay, so that's a problem with paying him piecemeal. If you pay him by the number of items he presses, he might rush. Yeah. What's the problem with paying him by hour?
I would say he wouldn't be motivated to do it. He just, like, you know, if there is a slow day in the company, he wouldn't you know, give his best to ensure the
and
work.
Then the problem is, as it says in the story, this costs the company money.
Yeah.
Costs the company money if they do it by the hour. So this sounds like it's a no-win situation. Either the company loses money doing it by the hour, or the company loses quality doing it by the number. Any solutions here?
We were talking about incentive, like non-payment incentives, you know, like the indirect payments, which are, I don't know, like give him a vacation or some sort of insurance, or I don't know, some privilege that's not money.
To do what? I mean, how would giving him a vacation change anything?
I don't know. He could, I don't know, improve.
I mean, you can give him a puppy and a new car. I don't see how this is going to change anything. The problem isn't really, so okay, I can see it if you're talking about the hourly thing, because the problem with the hourly thing is if he works fast, he'll make less money. And he's not going to do that. There's no way the employee is going to accept making less money so that Mr. Rich Man Jack can make more. There's no reason for the employee to do that. What about the idea of just giving him $300 a week?
But like,
that? Which
like
idea?
regarding of his work?
No, giving him $300 a week to the employee, making it flat. If you finish your work quickly, then you leave early.
Okay, I think it would be a solution, but I think the same problem would come back. You know, like the quality wouldn't be, you know.
Quality is an issue. How do we fix this issue of quality? Using compensation, right? We know we can use recruitment to try to get a certain kind of person to come and apply for the job. We know we can use selection to try to target a certain kind of person in the group of people who want the job. We know we can use training to teach them how to do a good job. We know we can use evaluation to motivate them and to make sure that they are doing a good job. Now, the last question is, how do we use money? Because this is a big issue. If we're just paying them by the hour, there's problems there. If we're paying them by the piece, there's problems there. Constance, what about the managers? What are we going to do about the managers? They don't actually iron the clothes, so we can't pay them by the piece.
We were thinking to do what Juan said, like to give them like non-payments incentives, like holidays.
What would the incentive be? If you do what, you get a benefit.
He already has like, 1 second, please. He already has like commission on his sales and also on the like fuel bill. So to add up money might not be like the solution for them, like as an incentive.
Okay, Chandra, do you agree?
So yeah, like I think when they make more like outputs, when they make more sales, like we can give them some indirect compensation.
So you would tie this to the number of sales. If there's more sales in the store, then the manager does better. I mean, it's very classic.
Otherwise, it would be so unfair for hard workers, I think.
Pretty hard if you don't base it on sales. Is there anything else we could base it on? Anais, is there anything else you think we could base the manager's payment on besides the amount of money each store makes?
What about productivity?
What do you mean by productivity? Isn't that just how fast you do things and then how much money you
No,
make?
I don't think it's only about how fast we do things. I think it's how many things people do and how effective the work is. I mean, like, do they get a lot of customer complaints? Do they not? Are the customers generally happy with the kind of work that they provide? Things like that.
Sure, that could be a different measurement than just money. Productivity isn't just how much money do we make. Productivity generally means how much does it cost us per hour for these workers? You know, if a worker, let's say Chandra is a manager of one dry cleaning store and Christine is a manager of another and Anais is a manager of a third. Now, Chandra's store makes a lot of money, okay? Her store makes the most money, but they have workers there from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 12 hours a day, but they make the most money. Christine's store makes a little bit less, but the workers only work from 9 to 3. And Camila's store makes the least, but the store is only open from 12 to 4. And the workers are all very happy. And the workers recently have started working with the community on partnering with a local school to clean their sports clothes for the kids after school. And recently the school gave us an award for Camila's store. These are 3 very different situations. Now, productivity would tell us the value of each worker per hour in this case. So for Chandra's store, per hour, the workers, it's easy to measure how much money they're making. And it's actually not that much money per worker per hour. She has the most workers. She has 8 workers and they're in 2 shifts. So it's open 12 hours a day. So the workers per hour maybe aren't bringing us in that much money. Christine, her store makes less, but her workers are a little more valuable. Per hour, they generate more money for us. Camila's store is quite interesting because her store makes the least amount of cash. But how do we measure what's called goodwill? You can buy and sell goodwill. And her store is generating goodwill. Is goodwill worth money? Oh, definitely. Why would someone choose to go to our agency, I mean, we want to make good money, and you make good money by having partnerships. And Camila's place, everybody's in a good mood. They're happy. They have Fresh Fruit Friday, and she brings in fruit for everybody. And there's lots of things she could be doing. So productivity is a different way of looking at this. Effectiveness is a different way of looking at this. It's not about how much money do we make. What is the goal of this company? What's Jack's goal? Is his goal just to keep opening more stores? No, we don't know. It doesn't really say here what his goal is. However, that's critical for us to understand what an effective compensation system would be. We have to know his goal. If his goal is just making as much money as possible, Chloe, if Jack's goal is to make as much money as possible, how do you think he should pay the employees?
You should use if the hourly payment is making the company losing money, then the per piece.
I'd probably agree. He should charge as cheap as he can pay the employees per piece. Would Jack really care if the quality goes down a little bit? Probably not. If his goal is just as much money as possible, keep the cost low, keep the prices to the customers low, and just get the work done as fast as possible. Now, what if Jack has a different goal? What if he wants to be known as the highest quality dry cleaning establishment in this state? Well, that's a very different goal. And in that case, he might choose to pay people in a different way, maybe by setting goals for the employees. I would say if this case, he knows that one of his employees, Walt, usually does 22 to 23 tops per hour. That's what he can normally do. Jack could just set a goal. If you do these 25 per hour, then you get a bonus. You know, for example, I'll pay you like 30 cents per hour, but if every single one is good quality, then I'll give you a bonus of, it'll be 5 cents per top. So you get a bonus if everything is good quality, right? So you guys considered the idea of giving bonuses, but you didn't really say what the bonus is for.
How do we know the quality is good by
You would
using the
need
hour?
to train your managers to check.
So
Or
can we
you would
just,
have
use it
workers
like,
check on each other.
yeah, before, like, can we just use the quantity based on quantity weight? So after they have pressed the tops or the clothes, we make a quality control.
Wait, say that again?
So can they just based on like quantity weight? So after they have pressed the top, so they can have the quality control by the manager.
I don't understand how that's different. So you pay people by the number of things that they press,
Yes.
but the
Yeah.
quality has to be measured unless Jack doesn't care. If he cares, then the quality has to be measured by someone. And the manager's busy. He doesn't want to sit around looking at everybody's shirt, right? We need to give some sort of incentive for quality. What I would probably do is I would incentivize one of the employees at each store to be the quality control manager. I would make a new position called QC manager, and I would give an incentive for that person and say, listen, if the quality is good, you get a big bonus. And that means it's on you to make sure the quality is good. What I'd probably do is I would give the quality control manager a certain amount of money or benefits to distribute to everybody else. Why would I do that? Well, if I'm Jack and I give salaries and benefits to the workers, then the workers are grateful to Jack. And if Juan is in charge of quality, nobody cares about Juan. Why do I care if it's good quality? Juan gets in trouble, who cares? I get my money from Jack. So what if we change it so I don't get my money from Jack? I get part of my money from Juan. Well, now I care. Now I care what Juan thinks. So what I would probably do is I would separate how people get paid. Part of the money is your base salary, and part of your money is based on quality. You know, the idea here in general is that there's a lot that we can do with compensation that goes far beyond just picking a salary or saying, I'll give you more vacation time or things like that. So we start with the idea of what does it mean to say the payment has to be fair? What makes a payment fair, in your opinion? What makes a payment fair? Bella, you there? Sounds like a no. Constance, what makes a payment fair?
Everybody gets the same amount, and it's regarding your like job description.
Okay, so Constance says fair means everybody gets the same amount. Nicola, do you agree?
I just would add if they are pursuing the same work. I mean, we cannot compensate the same amount if people doing different jobs.
Okay, so everybody who's doing the same job should get the same payment.
Yeah, yeah, and also depends. For example, you have this like junior, I don't know, a manager, junior manager, and a senior manager. So,
well, those are different
the
jobs.
senior, yeah, but sometimes in the same level, you have, you know, more experienced people that pursue a little bit more supervisor things. So maybe they're
Right,
the
so
same
you
line, but
get more money for more responsibility.
more
In
experience.
that case, more
Yeah,
experience,
exactly.
sure. All right.
Yes.
So this idea of similarity of payment, this idea of paying people based on their responsibility or their experience. How much should you pay an IE? How much should you pay an IE?
I pay 45.
You don't need to, let's not use exact
per
numbers.
hour.
Let's not use exact numbers. How did you decide that number, regardless of what the number is? Did you
I think this is
negotiate?
quite. No, I usually not negotiate someone's works, but this is, I mean, my behavior. I don't think this is a standard thing.
So you just picked a
For
number
example,
at random.
my here, yeah. For example, if I hire someone, for me the most important is recommendation. So someone recommend me, I.e., for example, so I hire her, see her work, oh, it's good, so I will pay the amount that she asked me to pay.
So she asked
If I don't
you
like
for this much.
Like how much is 45? Okay, 45. Your work is good.
Okay, but you understand my question. My question is just,
yes.
How did you get the number? Right? My question isn't how did you learn about this person or why did you hire this person? We're just talking about compensation. So how did you get the number? And your answer is the IE told me I want this much.
Yes.
Okay, that's one way. How else would you decide how much to pay an IE?
You could check the market price.
Okay, sure. You could check the market price. Camila, any other thoughts? You could check the market price. You could ask the IE how much she wants. Anything else?
I think it's also based on performance. So you can actually set a price on performance, like how good she is at cleaning. And then
where do you
can
get the
compare.
price from? I mean, if you say performance, you still need to pick a number.
Probably you can get it from, market referral, marketing
Okay.
referral.
So you say the market.
So you could,
I think I have to
Yeah,
disagree,
exactly.
Camila. I feel
So-
like
why?
because like if you say like for example you're gonna pay someone based on like their performance, what are your standards? Like you need to come up with a lot of things like before so that they know like what you're expecting, because then like they could clean something and then you're like, nah, it's not what I asked, and then they
So
don't
then,
get paid.
Anais, how would you come up with a price?
As I said, market price, and also I would talk to the person depending on like, I would evaluate what the job is, like if it's just cleaning like my bedroom or, you know, just like sweeping the floor, that would be a different price than like a complete cleaning of my apartment.
Would any of you guys think about how much you would charge to do it? Nicola, how much would I have to pay you to clean my apartment, including my bathroom?
There is two ways to pay me. One way is 1,000 per hour for anything, and another way is zero, and I will do it because I like you. This is my two ways to do anything.
You clean my toilet because
If
you
you
like
understand
me?
what I'm
That's
saying.
nice.
Yeah, no
Wouldn't say
problem.
I don't think you'll like
But
me
if
for
you want
very
to pay
long.
me, would be 1,000 per hour
Okay.
for anything. That's my
Cool.
price for anything.
Landry, what's your price? How much I have to pay you to clean my apartment?
Don't say anything, Nicola. Anything is crazy.
I don't know. I think depend on the day I'm working for.
Today,
I'll say 150.
150
Yeah,
per hour, or just 150 to clean the whole apartment?
for the day.
150 what? RMB?
Dollars? Yeah.
Oh, RMB.
Really?
I,
That is a very
Right.
low price. Landry, you are hired.
Landry,
150
come to
RMB a
Shanghai.
day. My God. Jody, what's your price?
Is it not based on the how big is your apartment?
My apartment is, I don't know, it's a one-person apartment. It's got a bedroom and a living room, a kitchen, bathroom.
80 kwai?
Per what? For the whole day?
No, maybe like 1.5.
80
Hour.
kwai for 1.5 hours. You guys are just lowballing yourself. I am shocked. I am shocked at the prices you guys are giving me.
But I think the price in China is like that, right? I mean in Shanghai.
Yeah,
Oh,
I used to
it's a
pay my
lot less
IE
in
like
Shanghai.
30.
40,
Yeah,
50,
it's around
30.
30.
something.
Yeah.
It's around
30,
50 per
yeah,
hour.
So I
Per
used to pay my
per
IE
hour.
100 RMB per time. I didn't do it by hour, just 100 RMB. So I was paying above market price, but she also was taking care of my dog and cat, and they loved her. So she gets extra money for that. But you know, it's about 30 an hour, 35 an hour. But clearly the point is, none of you would consider paying an IE the amount of money you would charge to do it. That's clearly not what you're looking at. How much would you pay somebody to help you with advertising or marketing? What would you think is a reasonable price? Juan, how would you figure that out?
Well, I would go for recommendations because I would think I need a, you know, like a good marketing plan or
So
something.
you would ask
Like if
somebody
it's
how much
not
should be
good,
paid?
then I would do that. Yeah, yeah. Same, like just research for the market price to see how much they usually pay for advertising.
Okay.
I think for advertising and marketing, it's kind of different because they usually, when they like offer you some advertising or marketing, they give you like a number, like this is the number we are gonna reach for sales or like visit. So that's based on the price.
So you would expect them to quote you a price.
Yeah, they usually do when they offer you like some service like marketing or advertising. So
Okay,
they set a
Camila,
goal and they have to
would you
people-
pay more money to an IE or a dog walker? Who gets more?
I think the IE.
Okay. How about a private English teacher? How do you figure out how much that should be, Chloe?
Based on the experience that they have, which school they went to, if it's like the first time they're teaching, who they taught to, and
Okay, so there you would look at experience, but where would you get the number from for the price? I mean, I understand if they had more experience, the number would be higher. If they were brand new, the number would be lower. But where do you get the number?
I'll just ask some companies, I guess.
Okay, might ask some company. Chandra, how would you figure out how to pay a CFO?
BFO.
CF.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Based on their career experience or like previous record.
Yeah, but you're telling me what would make the number go up or down. I'm asking, where does the first initial number come from?
Not sure.
Okay.
That's a quote.
So you might ask this person, how much money do you want?
Yeah.
How much?
Because I feel
Sure.
for things like marketing, advertising, and the job of a CFO, you have a certain level of expertise. You wouldn't just be offering your services like if you didn't have any experience or knowledge in the subject. So I think like your time, I don't know if it's rude to say that it's a little bit more valuable, or yeah, it is. So
Yeah,
I think
it is.
that it would be more expensive.
It would be. It's just really a matter of where we get these numbers from. So nobody mentioned the websites that we've looked at. ONET, for example, would be a very good place to start for a CFO, for a marketing, advertising, or maybe a private English teacher. ONET would be a good place to start, or the other one, which was, I'm not remembering right now, but we looked at two websites. So when we're talking about compensation, compensation includes all forms of pay, everything. Pay or rewards. Everything that we give someone to work is compensation. Now, compensation program is generally the salaries, but not benefits and perquisites like vacations. That is considered incentives. So we separate salaries and incentives. And in this PPT, we're going to talk only really about salaries and money. And in the next PPT, we're going to talk more about benefits and incentives. As you said, the salary we give people does reflect their duties. It reflects their responsibilities. As we all know, people who have higher levels of education and more experience often have a job that has less duties, but gets paid more. Right? We expect a CFO or a CEO or a manager to get paid more than someone who's a dog walker or cleaning the house, even though cleaning the house could be far more difficult in some ways, right? We have much more technical knowledge needed to fix a car than we do to manage Toyota. Managing Toyota requires conceptual knowledge, but the CEO of Toyota is going to make a lot more money than someone who fixes cars, even if the CEO could never fix a car. So there's a real balance between duties and responsibilities. So one of the first things we need to understand is, what's the goal, right? We talk about this word all the time, the goal or the objective. What's the goal of paying people? Why do we pay people? And part of it is so that they'll stay with us. That's the idea of retaining people. Part of it is to attract people so they'll come and work for us. And then part of it is to motivate people. Now, in Jack's system that we looked at, when he started paying by the hour, that did motivate this guy, Walt, to work faster. But it didn't motivate Walt to work more carefully. And that would be the problem with just paying someone by the hour and not having an additional benefit for quality. That's something we would want to figure out. How do we motivate people with the money? As someone mentioned, there are two kinds. There's direct and indirect. And direct is anything you get that is cash, right? Your salary, your wage, your commission, your bonus, your Christmas bonus, your, everybody understand the word commission? Can you explain that to me, Landry? What is commission?
An an extra money you get from the work you've done on the revenue of the company.
The revenue of the company? I think, well, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is profit sharing, which is a little bit different. Ethan, can you tell us what the commission is?
Commission is the money that you make, the extra percentage of a sale. So you sell a TV, you get commission on the TV, a couple $100.
Okay, so let's be clear, it's about the sale. It's not about
Yeah.
the revenue. My company might make a lot of money this year. That doesn't mean Landry will get a commission. If you're selling cars at my company, for every car you sell, you get 1%, 2%, 5%, whatever your commission is. So you'll get a base salary every month, and then you'll also get a commission. Do waiters and waitresses get a commission?
No, they don't. They get bonus.
Tipping
They-
is different
I
than a
think
commission,
yes.
is it not?
They get a bonus, and they also
Depends.
usually in America, they get tips. Tips are different from a commission because tips can fluctuate. They can change. You can decide how much of a tip to give. Commissions are part of your contract. It says when you sell, if you sell a car, the manager cannot decide how much commission to give you today. That's in your contract. Anything that's indirect, it's still compensation, but it's not money that you get. It could be insurance, it could be vacations, it could be a company car, it could be training, it could be promotions, it could be being part of an acceleration pool, it could be attending a conference in Hawaii, it could be new clothes, there's all kinds of things it could be, but it's not money. Now we need to make sure that when we create a compensation program, we have two goals originally. That's the first most important thing is external equity and internal equity. So equity means fairness. Your salary has to be externally fair and internally fair. We talked about this in the video. Is one more important than the other? So anybody watch the video know what these two are?
I didn't find it on Blackboard.
Yeah.
The video?
Oh, the PPT. Sorry, I didn't check for the
I
video.
watched the video.
Oh, the video should be up. Maybe I didn't put the PPT up. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you didn't put up the PPT.
Sorry about that. I will put it up. Okay, so anybody watch the video? Tell me what is external and internal equity?
Is external equity is like same position, like same industry, but different company. But internal equity is like within the same company.
Yes,
right?
correct. So external is two different companies, but generally the same position. So if I'm working as a teacher at CIP and Ethan is working as a teacher at Jiaotong and we both teach HRM and I find that he makes twice my salary, of course, I'm going to consider going over to his school because externally it's not fair, right? There's no reason if it really is the same job and he's making a lot more money. So there has to be some kind of external equity. Doesn't have to be exactly the same, but there does have to be some kind of fairness. Internally is inside the company. So if I find out that Simon is making 3 times my salary and I don't understand why, well, then I'd be upset. And I would go to my boss and say, this isn't fair. What do you think, Nicola? Is one of them more important than the other?
If external is more important than internal,
Why?
I think internal is more important than external.
Why?
Because the external equity depends on the size of company, the market, But internally, if you have this kind of different salary among the employees, it can make, the environment of the company quite bad.
Okay. Ethan, do you agree?
I think I would disagree. I think external, if I'm doing the same job as somebody else in a different company is doing the exact same job and they're getting double my pay, even like a quarter of more money than me, I think that's going to make me kind of go and try to find something else that it's like, oh, this company's going to pay me my value. Because internally, like, maybe if they're doing the same job as me and they're getting paid more, then that's a problem. But if somebody else is doing a different job, I don't expect everybody to get the same pay as me across the board.
Okay. Do you think in a company, all the salaries should be transparent? Everybody should know what everybody else makes?
No, I think that builds kind of a resentment. And then because some people will feel that they're being slighted or they aren't being paid their worth compared to somebody else, that they may not see that person's all the stuff that they do, but they just see the salary and be like, that person is getting more than me and that's not fair. Kind of just.
Okay. Does anybody disagree and think the salary should be transparent and everybody should know what everybody makes?
I disagree.
Why?
I mean, there's nothing to hide if, I
But
mean,
Ethan doesn't want you to know how much he makes.
But-
He'll be.
I mean,
form of
everyone has
resentment.
different jobs and responsibilities, so obviously there will be just different wages. But if everything's fair, then there's nothing to hide.
Okay. Okay. These are all very interesting perspectives. There's no right and wrong here. You know, I think you're making good points about internal and external equity. So the first characteristics of a good compensation program, the first one is external, right? It has to be competitive with salary levels that reflect the current labor market for that industry. Obviously, if you're doing advertising for Tesla or for Apple, or you're doing advertising for a small paper company, well, we don't expect that to be the same, even though it's both advertising, because it's not the same industry. So the industry has to be the same. Obviously, we're talking about the current labor market, not what it was 10 years ago, but it should have external equity. Number two would be it should have internal equity. These are the two most important things for a salary compensation program. Third is that it does have to consider the talent that is wanted or needed. You have to pay more for people who went to better schools. Now, when we say pay, I don't necessarily mean cash. It could be all kinds of benefits. It could be educational benefits. It could be training benefits, promotion benefits, location benefits. As I mentioned in the video, I went to law school at University of Hawaii. And in Hawaii, they pay a lower salary than almost any other developed city in America at that level. But so many people want to live in Hawaii that you can have a lower salary and it's still very competitive. So if you want or need a certain level of talent, you might have to pay for it. Next has to be how much time and money and energy does it take to make this compensation program? If it takes your team 25 hours per month to plan out how much you're gonna pay each person, you know, so think about Jack and Jennifer Carter. They have this salary program where maybe they pay some people by the hour, maybe they pay other people by how many clothes they press. Well, how long does it take Jennifer or the managers to deal with this system? If it's taking them a week every month, well, then that's not working. You need a system that's got to be reasonably efficient to put into practice. So external equity, internal equity, what kind of talent are you trying to get? And how complicated is your compensation system? Other characteristics? Does senior management approve? We are HR, we're not senior management. So we propose a compensation system, but they must approve. Next, do employees understand? Now, this is part of the issue we were talking about just now with should salaries be transparent? So I had one friend who worked at a company in Shanghai where they had a big digital board on the wall that listed everybody's name and their salary. And they had a rule. If you are curious why someone makes more than you can make an appointment with the manager and talk about it. And the manager will explain to you why this person makes more than you. And if you want to make that much money, what do you need to learn? And there were a lot of benefits to that program, but it was very competitive because sometimes knowing everybody's salary can drive people to work harder. But employees have to understand and they have to believe that the salaries are reasonable or fair. If the employees don't believe they're fair, they'll be upset, they'll have a resentment. Next, salaries should have a motivating factor. And it's not just the salary, it's the whole compensation program. So we have to consider incentives. That's one of the problems maybe with Jack and Jennifer, is they're just talking about how much money do they give the workers. There's no incentives at all. And incentives could be non-monetary. Things like having a little more control over your schedule or what location you work. With motivation goes the idea of growth or development. Right now, when we think of compensation, we usually just think of payment. And payment might motivate you because it's a good amount of money and you need the money to live. You can buy a car, you can buy a nice house, wherever. But that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your growth or development as a human being. What could contribute to your growth? What could a company give you that might contribute to your growth, Constance? If you got a job out of Donghua, what could the company offer you that would contribute to your growth?
Training.
Maybe, sure. Anything else?
Promotion.
Sure, that would contribute to your growth and development. Sure. Chloe, anything else?
New knowledge and abilities.
Do you want that?
Not abilities, but knowledge.
Like training?
Yeah, like experience, some real life experience.
Okay, sure, real life experience. Anything else? Anybody? Any other thoughts? What could a company offer you besides training and promotions?
What about
They can pay for you to.
Sorry, Nicola, what were you saying?
What about they pay like your master degree or something like this?
Okay, sure.
I
They
was
pay
just
for.
going to say that.
Yeah, I think you're both going to say that. They pay for classes of some kind.
Yeah.
Sure. Anything else?
Maybe they can give you responsibilities within the company.
Okay, sure, that's true too. Where it's not a promotion necessarily, but it's additional responsibilities or things like job rotation, where you can try out other jobs inside the company. That would be compensation. Okay. Another thing that would allow for growth would be things like mentorship, would allow for growth and development.
It's not like that, the training.
Mentorship, I think it's a little different from training. Another thing I would say would be, well, I'll give an example. There's a company called Zappos. And Zappos in America gives every employee has, I think it's $1,000. I think it's $1,000 per month. Maybe it's 2,000. They're not allowed to take the money home. It's $1,000 per month to spend in any way you want on your customers. You can send them flowers, you could send them a gift, but it's money to be spent on the customers. Or some companies allow a certain amount of money or time for charity. Is that compensation if you get one day off per week to go work at a charity of your choice? Sure. It's not money, but it would definitely lead to your growth and development. As we said, with creating the program has to be relatively cheap. It also has to be pretty easy to administer the program. If it takes you hours and hours to decide who gets what benefit, it's just not going to be effective. You have to make sure any sort of compensation program can stand up to a legal challenge, that you're not going to be challenged that you're paying men more than women, or you're paying one ethnic group more than another, or you're paying people differently based on their religion or age or any sort of belief system or anything like that. A good compensation program should allow you to have a range of salaries. So we talked about this in the video. The idea is, if you start, and this is not at a very small company, but at any reasonable sized company, you would come in at the bottom of or somewhere in a range. Not everybody gets a different salary. People are in ranges. So let's say that Anais, Christine, Chloe, and Ethan all start at my company. I'm HR, and I hired you guys. And we have 4 ranges for salaries. Range number 1, that's the CEO, the managers, the senior vice president. They're all in that range. You guys start in range 3. Now, range 3 could go from $45,000 a year to $65,000 a year. And maybe Anais comes in and starts at 50. And Christine, you have a master's and 5 years experience. You come in and you start at 67. And Chloe, you just graduated from school. You come in at 46. And you all come in at different prices, but you're all in range number 3. And Ethan's been here for a while, so he's at 68. And the next time he gets a raise, he's going to move up to range number 2. But he'll be in the bottom of range 2. So good compensation programs don't just decide on a salary. Now, whether or not Jack and Jennifer would want to use a range is maybe not necessary for an hourly job like that. Finally, you want salaries to give people a sense of confidence that it's not arbitrary, that there is some sort of method to create the salaries. It wasn't just something the manager made up. So when you're making the salary, obviously it should be related to the objectives or goals of the company. The salary should not just be, well, in another company, they pay a teacher this much, so CIP will pay a teacher that much. That's the most basic way to do things, but there's so much more in HR we can do with salaries. Also, it should be related to performance evaluations. If people do better, they probably should get either a higher salary or more compensation of some kind. Bella, you there?
Yes.
Okay, Bella, how are compensation programs related to a job description?
You're gonna give compensation to someone whose performance is considered pretty good compared to the job description.
Okay, what is the job description?
It defines what the responsibilities and duties are.
Okay, so we need to know what the responsibilities and duties are, and then how someone performed relative to that. Sure. Last question, don't you think this circle is really nicely drawn? Aren't you impressed?
Yes, I am very impressed.
Thank you. This line is also very straight. I feel pretty good about this slide. Job specifications. Camila, are job specifications related to compensation?
Well, I think they are, because then maybe in the job specifications you should like know that if you do certain performance you will get a compensation.
What is
And
a
if you
job
don't,
specification?
it's a detailed form that tells you what are you gonna do in the job.
I think you're describing a job description.
Oh, okay.
Job
So I
description is what are you going to do in the job. Landry, what is a job specification?
It determines the type of people who gonna do the job?
Okay, the type of people, like the personality. So is this related to payment?
Not really.
Not really. Anybody think that it is?
For like diplomas and degree. So yes, like the experience.
Say that again.
Like in the job specification, there is also the like university degrees, experiences.
Okay, so it's not just like, are you a nice person or are you a happy person? It's a lot more than that. It might include, the job description is what do you do? Just every day, what do you do? It's nothing about who are you? It's just what do you do? Now, of course, what do you do has to do with your payment and your compensation. But who are you could also be, as Constance said, do you have a PhD? And that will definitely affect your job. How well trained are you? Are you, Juan, would you say that someone who's very calm under pressure, that could be related to their compensation?
No, because it would be like the same example you gave on the video about personality. You don't get paid by your personality.
Sure, but let's say that I am, I work in a company that does bodyguard training and bodyguard services.
Yeah, I would say yeah. Like if you are fit, like it would be you would be fit for the job. You know, you can handle tense situations. So yeah.
Sure. Or what if it's like a very, very high stake negotiator, negotiating multi-million-dollar deals? Do you think I'd pay more for somebody who's cool and calm and collected?
Definitely,
right? It's not exactly the same as saying I'm paying because you are this kind of person. There are definitely character traits. It's just not for every job. You know, there's some jobs where these things really matter and some jobs where it doesn't matter. If you're a salesman, you shouldn't necessarily get paid more because you're an extrovert. You should get paid more if you sell a lot. In that sense, it shouldn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert. All that matters is you're a salesperson. How are your sales? But in some jobs, your personality really does matter. What about the job requirements matrix? Jody, do you remember this? What is the job requirements matrix?
The combination between specification and description.
Sure. So this is related to compensation because it tells us what do you do, how much time do you spend each day doing that, what is the most important thing that you do each day. It just has all of your responsibilities and a lot of stuff about your personality to some extent. And competency model also. Competency model will tell us a lot about not what do you do. That's the job requirements matrix. Competency model is what skills and abilities do you need to have? Christine, can you tell me a skill or ability that is very highly paid?
Skill or ability.
Everybody think about it. What's a skill or ability that would be highly desirable in today's job market?
Public speaking, I guess.
Okay, communication.
Yeah.
Manipulate numbers.
Sure. Mathematical knowledge, ability to work with numbers.
Using technology like Excel.
Absolutely.
Or like
leadership skill.
Sure. Absolutely.
Integrity.
Sorry, integrity. I wish integrity paid a lot. I don't think it does. But it's nice. It's a nice thing to have. You know, technology skills, that will pay you a lot. Anything else that's highly desirable in today's job market? Languages are pretty highly desirable.
Problem solving skills.
Problem solving skills, sure. Conceptual knowledge and problem solving. Okay, so these are all different skills that are important. How do we get the initial number? Obviously, we collect data, right? How do we know how much we should pay advertising or marketing? You know, if we're working in HR, look, if you're starting a small company and you want to hire someone for marketing, sure, you can ask them, how much do you charge? But if I'm running I'm in HR and I work for a big company, I'm not going to ask you how much you want. I'm going to tell you how much the job pays, and we can negotiate. How do I find out how much the job pays? Well, of course, I can look at other industries, but also I can ask people. Questionnaires, logs, diaries, observations, interviews. If I want to know how much a teacher makes, I should probably ask teachers. If I want, it's the same for a job description or a job analysis. If you want to know what these jobs do, you got to ask people. And that's pretty much how you find out. You know, if I wanted to find out how much you should pay an IE, I could ask you guys, but maybe the best thing to do would be if somebody has an IE, I just ask the IE, how much do most IEs get paid? They'll give me the good answer. And then there's other things we can do once we have a general baseline to decide if we should pay sort of more or less than the average. So some of the things we're going to look at is supervision. Is this person, so you guys talked about the duties that they have, the responsibilities that they have, the experience that they have. And I agree that all of those things are very important in terms of, should I pay someone a little bit more or a little bit less, right? As I said, even with my IE, she had experience working with pets and the animals loved her. I will absolutely pay more for that. She has experience. Paying for, do you guys have any idea? I mean, you're too young to have kids, I assume. Some of you might, but I don't know. But, you know, do you have any idea how much it is for an IE who takes care of the baby? What they call a wet nurse. Anybody have any idea how much that costs in China?
I think it's 10 to 20,000 per
A
month.
lot, I would imagine.
Something like that. I don't know the exact prices, but I would say 10 to 20,000 a month is a low estimate. You know, now how do you, that's how much it costs. These are people who you can trust your newborn baby with. It's what they do. You know, it's almost like being a midwife. So, or an abuela. It's like, it's a kind of job. It's a specialized thing. Now, people can make a lot of different amounts, but part of it is their duty. There are other things though, like duties, of course, are important, but supervision is also really critical. So one thing is, will this job holder, this employee supervise other people? And then how will this person be supervised? And how much instruction do you need to give them? If I'm hiring you to work for my company in marketing, can I pretty much give you the folder and say, here's your project, go? Or do I need to sit down and teach you how to do it? Because that really is going to depend on how much I pay you. Will you have a lot of authority? It's not just what are your duties. Also, what are the working conditions? Can anybody tell me a working condition that is highly paid?
Maybe like if you use machinery, like yeah, if you know how to work with machinery, they will pay you more.
Sure. Or if you can drive a big truck. Driving, that's why drivers get paid a lot of money, because you need a special license. Using certain machinery, you need a special license. Dangerous conditions, not so much in China, but outside China, in dangerous conditions do get paid more. You actually get paid quite a lot for working on the highways, in the toll booth where you take money. That job is quite well paid. One of the jobs in America that people talk about that's very well paid is garbage person, collecting garbage.
What?
Why?
Yeah.
Because it smells like garbage all day. It's just around garbage and it smells like garbage, and you come home and smell like
it's a good
garbage.
job. There's lots of benefits to that. Yeah.
There's a lot of benefits and really, really good salary.
Good hours
But I
too.
think
You
this is,
just work a couple hours a day in an area and then it's it.
That's it. You're outdoors.
This is
You're only working a few hours. You make like, I think it's between 80 and 100 grand a year. It's a good job. You guys should think about it.
This is in US. Definitely it's not the same reality in other countries. Trust me.
Okay, that's true. I am talking about the US. I don't know if it's a good job in China or in Brazil or other countries. It's not a good job elsewhere. That's too bad. Should be.
Yeah.
So skills, obviously we know. Will the job holder train people? If you train or direct other people, you might be making more money. How often are you reviewed? How often do you get an evaluation? Machinery or equipment we talked about. What's the cost of serious errors? Now that's pretty important in terms of salary because that is a special kind of responsibility that has a lot to do with anxiety and stress. Some people, if they're a big negotiator and they make a mistake, it can cost the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. This would also be why lawyers make more money, or doctors. There's a cost of serious error. And what stakeholders will you interact with? Are you working every day with vice presidents and managers, people who it's really, really important to the company that you behave properly and it's worth a lot of money to the company? So all of these have to do with how job descriptions are related to compensation. Now, we talked before about job descriptions when we talked about job analysis, but just have a quick review because job descriptions are also a big part of compensation. We just want to be clear that there's two kinds of descriptions. There's sort of general and there's specific. General could be for a lot of different positions. We could definitely have a general job description for teachers. Or we could have a specific job description for an HRM teacher. We could have a general description for advertising or a specific description for intro level or entry level advertising in the children's clothing department and just make it very specific. Both are possible. Job descriptions generally should always be answering sort of the 5 W's and an H, who, what, where, when, why, and how. And we also want to make sure that job descriptions use action words. So to write a job description, the who, what, where, when, why, we want to be specific. You don't want to list every task. Don't list every task that people do. But you want to give examples of duties, and you want to arrange everything in a logical order. So the greatest amount of time or the greatest responsibility. In addition to these, just here's some other stuff. Why does Google want me to sign up for Secret Santa? Here's just some other things that are important in writing job descriptions. We don't need to go through all of this, but it's in the textbook. Making sure that you keep everything job related, that you don't ever say, we're looking for someone who's fun at parties. And if it's not related to the job, don't put it in the description. Always be objective rather than subjective. Eliminate any unnecessary grammar. Don't refer to specific people, things like that. Okay. So determining compensation. So before we discuss exactly how we set the compensation, the number, there are a couple of things to consider first. And this, for example, would be a very unfortunate legal and sort of social factor that female managers are often paid less. This is changing. And one of the very, very cool things about China is this is not true in China. In China, people are really paid by their position. There was a lot of equalization that happened during the Cultural Revolution and later on during Deng Xiaoping's modernization. And women and men are paid about the same. But in Western countries, female managers are paid less, and managers are paid less if they mostly manage women. So there's a lot of bias still in the West. But generally, there are 4 factors that we want to consider before we set payment. We are coming up on maybe little more than halfway, an hour and a half. So I'd say before we get into these, let's take a break now. Anybody have any questions before we break? Do you guys want to know how I drew such a perfect circle? I mean, it was really impressive. No? All right, we'll take a 10-minute break, then we'll come back. Okay, we're now recording again, and let's continue. So we're talking about the main factors determining compensation rates before we actually get into what the rate would be. So first factor is the legal factor. There are some things that we learned before, such as the FLSA, whether you're exempt or non-exempt, and the Equal Pay Act and Title VII. We've learned those before. So the FLSA, we just need to make sure, are you exempt or not? If you are exempt, then that means you have like an executive or a manager level job, and you don't have to think about the maximum hours or minimum hours or overtime or things like that. If you have that kind of job, you're not worrying about minimum wage. But if you're non-exempt, that's when you're working hourly, like in Jack and Jennifer's Carter Cleaning Company. Those workers would be non-exempt, so they would have a minimum wage, a maximum number of hours, and more than that, they would have to be paid overtime. Equal Pay Act, we know, is to equalize men and women. Title VII, we know, is for any kind of discrimination. We know that Title VII includes the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and that gives teeth to Title VII. We know the difference between discrimination on purpose or sort of accidental discrimination, and it doesn't matter. We also know BFOQ and business necessity, how you defend against these things. We haven't learned the last two, Bacon-Davis and Walsh-Healy, and these are a little complicated. You don't really need to know them very much because they really only apply to American law. But yeah, you can look at this on your own, determining exemption, but you guys should already pretty much understand how you know who is exempt and who is not exempt. That's the idea here. Equal pay, Title VII. Okay, Davis-Bacon Act. This is an American law, but a lot of countries do have this kind of law. And all it really says is if you work for the government, if you're a contractor or a subcontractor for the government, you have to get a salary that is no less than local salaries, what's called the prevailing wage. And the reason for this is, I mean, this is old. This is 1931. But before this, you had people who were working for the government, and this is contractors and subcontractors. So mostly we're talking about building and repairing. And you had a lot of people who, let's say, were help building a highway, and they would get a lot less money than if they were working for a private company. Well, what happened? Nobody wanted to take these government contracts because the contractors were paying so much less. And so the government was getting the worst quality work. So they created this act, this law that says if you work for the government or you work for private, doesn't matter, you get the prevailing wage. But then there was still a problem. And the problem was, okay, so the wage was pretty much equal, but people who worked for private companies were getting a lot more benefits than the government jobs. And so then they created the Walsh-Healy Act. You know, so this is 1931, this is 1936. And it pretty much said basic labor rights also are given to anybody working for the government. So in America and other Western countries, if you work for the government, you have to be able to make the prevailing wage. You can't be paid less than local private companies would pay, and you get the same basic rights. And that's all there is to say about the law, pretty much, right? There are other things we learned, like age discrimination or the Americans with Disabilities Act, but pretty much we learned all of that in Chapter 2. Next is union factors. And we're not going to say very much about that either, because if we have time, we'll get into the whole topic of unions later. But the idea of a union, and I usually, as I said earlier in today's class. I usually don't teach this at Donghua because most of the students are not American. So it's really not relevant since all of our textbooks are American and union law is different in different countries. But you should generally understand what a union does. So what a union primarily does, this is like the number one thing unions do, is called collective bargaining. The other thing that unions do is unions support the union. They want to make sure that the union stays powerful. So what is collective bargaining? This is similar to the idea of a strike. Camila, what's a strike?
Like the general idea of a strike?
Yeah.
It's like a, am I wrong, or is it like a protest?
Like a protest? I'm sure. What are they protesting?
Like people, group of people claiming something they want or they need.
Well, who
So
goes on strike?
Workers?
Usually it's workers. Could the students go on strike?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now,
They
if the
could go,
students
yeah.
go on strike, you don't want salaries. What is it you want?
Benefits.
Something,
Better
right?
conditions.
Better conditions usually would be for students. Maybe these days, maybe you'd want more diversity training. Maybe you would want, I mean, our school is extremely diverse, but I know this is a big issue in America. Students go on strike at universities to say there's no diversity. When you're hiring people, we don't have any control over it. Maybe classes are unfair or the students don't like what they're being taught. It's very interesting because when my parents went to college, they were a lot of students going on strike then too, because that was the 1960s. The 60s and 70s had a lot of students going on strike. So what you're doing is a group of people getting together, and it's some kinds of workers. You guys are workers because you're working at school, and I'm a worker because I'm an employee. And what you would do is you would get together and collectively bargain. Now, you guys as students would all say, we're not going to go to class, we're not going to go to school unless we can bargain with the administration. If it's employees, what are we usually talking about? Of course, money. The minimum wage or how much money we get is usually what employees are talking about. Or it could be vacations, insurance, things like that, but something to do with compensation. And so that's why unions are closely related to the subject of compensation. And if we have time, we'll get into a deeper study of what kind of things do unions ask for, a little bit about the history of unions. There are different kind of things like a wildcat union. There's different kinds of jobs that allow you to be in the union or not be in the union. Some unions are required, for example, if you want to be an actor in America, you need to be part of the SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. But we won't talk about that more right now. Policy factors are quite important to me though. So policy factors have to do with strategic aims and aligned reward strategy. Tell me a little about what this means, please. Landry, what does this mean, aligned reward strategy? What does aligned mean?
Goes in the same direction as the company strategy.
Good. Sure. So the compensation policy goes in the same direction as the company strategy. We want in this company to create a rewards package, and that is your salary, your incentives, your benefits. These are the big three. That goes in the same direction with the strategy. So I'd like you to take a couple minutes and I'll put you guys in groups. And here's what I want to know. I want to know, how would you create an aligned reward strategy for teachers at CIP? So we're not only talking about salary, we're talking about all kinds of benefits. How would you create an aligned reward strategy?
So what would, so it's incentives, wages, and benefits, right?
Benefits.
Yep.
So what would fit for CIP? Benefits? Like for a teacher?
Yeah, like you said in the video, maybe when students open our business, like being a good entrepreneurs, and then maybe professors can get reward for that, because you guys are teaching us kind of like business related knowledge. So maybe whenever we make some success of the business field, then professor can benefit for that with their salary. Then they
Maybe.
can
What
be
kind
more
of
motivated.
reward? Like how do you reward?
It's what final and midterms are for now. Like if you pass those two, it means the teacher did good most of the time.
Yeah, but it also depends because the exam can be simple. It can make it easier in the exam, so more people will pass.
I don't know if
This is the
you know,
tricky
but
thing.
every exam should be approved by the office of CIP. So they establish the standards of like what expectation do they get for the level they want to have, and if it's high enough, you can.
I see, I
like,
see.
the people can do the exam.
Not extra money, probably we can give them some recommendations. I mean, we can't, but the school can give them some like good recommendations, and that way we can create an aligned reward.
Yeah, we could get like rewards from the best influencer teacher or something like that.
Well, I would stick to the one I say, but yeah, sure. But why not money? You know, like
Yeah, why not money? Thank you.
Usually
No,
is the best motivator.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking about the example you were giving in the video about the, you know, if the CIP is trying to have like an entrepreneurship environment, and this teacher help the students to have like their company and start their business and they could be compensated by that. But
Sure.
yeah, I think
Okay.
it's like, yeah.
Good. Let's all get back together and talk about this. Okay, so as some people watched the video, and so those people know, I had given a suggestion, a sort of example of if CIP, so, you know, the whole idea here is we can't really say what the best system would be if we don't know what the strategic aims are. I mean, that's got to be our first question. Anything else is just a guess. If you're saying, oh, we should give teachers more money or we should give teachers more vacations. I mean, why? You know, what's the benefit of doing this or that? There are a variety of things that schools might want. Now, the example I gave in the video was about making CIP more of an entrepreneurial school, which is one possible goal. There are others. What if you wanted CIP to become a very highly ranked school? What if you wanted the rankings to be as high as possible? How would you create a reward strategy that would relate to that? Christine, what do you think? What could you give the teachers that would motivate them to increase the school's rank?
Maybe for every student that gets like a high GPA or grade, they get a bonus or some sort of, I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I could just give everybody high grades then, or I could teach you everything that's on the test and nothing else.
don't know.
Anybody else have any thoughts? What other, I mean, that's wages. Can you think of any incentives or benefits you could give to a teacher if you just wanted to increase rank? Maybe you guys don't know what makes a school high or low rank.
Maybe
Well,
tenure.
Yeah.
Tenure? That's interesting. Maybe. So rank also would have a lot to do with the funding and the academic excellence of the school. So it's not just about, do you get high grades? I mean, there are schools with a bad rank where people get high grades. That doesn't raise the rank of the school. It also would have to be lots of benefits related to every teacher having a PhD, making sure they're constantly learning, publishing papers would be a big one, winning awards and grants, anything like that would raise the rank of the school, partnerships with other schools, and then the student's academic performance. How many students have a published thesis? You know, so I've been recommending that for a few years, that when the students write thesis papers, we should create a journal and put the best thesis papers in this journal so that we have the Donghua Journal. I mean, things like that could raise rank, but only if that's their strategic aim, right? There's no right or wrong strategic aim, but the compensation policy needs to match it. That's about it for that. With compensation allocation, we talked before about the 4x4 matrix. If you guys remember what that is, it was when we talked about evaluations. We talked about the idea that you can't just pay people for being good at their job. It also has to do with their value to the organization. Can you explain this matrix to me? Chloe, can you explain the 4x4 matrix?
I think I don't remember.
You think you don't remember?
No, I don't. I know I don't remember.
Okay, Jody, can you explain the 4x4 matrix?
Same, I don't remember. Sorry.
Okay, Nicola. Oh
I have
no!
problems with my connection.
Yes, the famous Zoom excuse. When I'm here doing my master's, and there's one Chinese girl in one of my classes who she doesn't really like the teacher. And every time he asks her a question, she just turns off her camera and says, "I'm having trouble with my connection." Perfectly, because there's no problem with her connection. Very entertaining. So anybody remember what's the 4x4 matrix? No, it's this idea of value to the organization. So we had a chart that was separated into different categories and then also had different levels. So this would be 3x4, I guess. But we would have like, see, people who score 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So if I'm giving you evaluations and I say, okay, Christine, she got a 5. So this is Christine. And Camila, she got a 4. And Chandra, she got a 3. And okay, so I have the scores for you guys. But Chandra got a 3, but she's the senior vice president. Where Camila got a 5, but she's our newest member of the accounting team. Who's going to get paid more? Camila, who's doing a wonderful job as the newest member of accounting, or Chandra, who's worked here for 12 years and is a senior vice president? Of course, Chandra's going to make more money because she's more critical to the organization. This has to do with ranking people by how valuable they are to the organization. And if you remember, there were 4 of them. There were people who were non-essential, people who were core, people who were essential, and people who were mission critical. So we can put people in categories, not only of how well they score on their evaluations, but also on how important they are to the organization. And that is definitely going to affect their compensation. Other companies use things like a reward menu. So a reward menu would be a whole different variety of possibilities of what you could get. So tell me, Bella, what is something you would like to see in your post-graduation job?
Maybe something with, you mean the what kind of job I wanna?
Okay, I'll give you guys a minute to talk about it. What I mean is, imagine that you get a job after you graduate, and there's a whole list of benefits you can choose from. Like training is one of them, maybe a higher salary is one of them, maybe more vacation days is one of them. This is a modern thing that companies are doing, rather than a one-size-fits-all package that they give to everybody. They don't know exactly what you want. The same way with insurance. Some people want vision. Some people want dental. Some people want long-term life insurance. People want different things. So I want some ideas of what would be on your menu. So take a minute in these groups and discuss what you would put on your menus.
Guys know already?
For me, maybe insurance.
Yes,
Training.
insurance is the first.
Yeah. Training, mentorship.
What kind of insurance?
Health
Like
insurance?
health insurance, like healthcare.
Yeah.
Healthcare. Okay, but there's many kinds of healthcare. We'll get into this more when we get into the next PPT, which is about incentives, but there's definitely more than one kind. There's short-term healthcare, which is seeing doctors. There's long-term healthcare, and that's what if you break your leg or something bad happens and you need to live in the hospital. Those are different. You know, long-term care and short-term care. Then there's life insurance, which is, or like old, what they call it? I forget the name, but where you have to live in like a retirement community or a nursing home. That's also healthcare, long-term.
But
Car
I mean,
insurance.
this comprehensive one that you can stay in the hospital if you have something
Comprehensive,
really-
okay. It's expensive.
something like this. Yeah, because
Okay.
this is expensive.
It is. Insurance is very expensive.
Yes. I like this kind of flexibility of the work hours, but it depends of the job that we are pursuing.
Yeah.
For me, it's quite important.
To me,
Insurance,
extra
flexibility.
hours need to be paid.
What needs to be paid?
That's very good.
The extra hours.
Sure. So paid
Because
overtime?
like in most of my job, yeah, I did overtime almost every day and never get paid for it. So to me, it's super important.
Yes.
And they're
They
non-exempt
usually
jobs?
do this. Even non-exempt jobs, they do this bench of hours or something like that. You work 1 hour more and then you have this hour allocated for.
So
you
different
use
jobs do it different
other
ways.
than-
Some jobs do 1.5 times, you know, or holidays are 2 times. And other jobs will say if you work over 40 hours a week, for every hour you work, you can take an hour off. Sometime in the future, you're building up vacation. If they don't want to pay you, they can do that too. That's possible. Sometimes if you work like on a holiday, you'll get an hour and a half off in the future, but you need permission of when to take it off. All right.
But the better is money. I think.
Doctors, but still like Chinese dentist is also expensive. So yeah, if company can pay for that, I think that would be really great, especially dental. Yeah.
I would say like if insurance depends on the company if the condition is dangerous or not. So if like dangerous, maybe they have they have to provide the insurance.
I think it's very rare to find like a company that would
If
give you
incentive
dental
like
insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good idea, but not a lot of people are ready to invest that kind of money in the teeth of their employees unless you're like a model or something where it matters.
Yeah.
Anything else besides health insurance?
We said more vacation days, like
Yeah.
collectively.
Okay.
The ability to travel. Yeah. Oh, and the to be on a path for promotion, or like the ability to get frequent either bonuses or promotions.
Okay. Okay, good. Cool. Let's leave the rooms and talk about it. Okay, so I heard a lot of people talk about health insurance, different varieties, maybe vision insurance, dental insurance, short-term care, long-term coverage if you have to live in the hospital. Nobody, I don't think I heard, mentioned insurance for families, but you guys are young still. So that's probably not an issue for you, but that's why you might want a menu, because for a lot of older people, their main issue was, will my insurance cover my wife and children or husband and children? They're thinking more about that. You guys aren't necessarily thinking about that. You're thinking about vacation days and a free Xbox. You know, training, I heard, promotions. Anything else? Work flexibility, being able to choose your own hours.
Profit sharing, like bonus.
Profit sharing, okay. What is profit sharing? We'll learn more about that later, but what is it?
Like if the company is profitable, so part of these profits is shared among the employees.
Sure. That gives everybody a good incentive to work hard.
Isn't it like dividend?
Like a dividend, it's like that, but dividends are with stocks. And that's another benefit you could ask for, would be some sort of stocks in the company or stock options in the company. We'll talk about that in the next PPT. Nobody really talked, somebody talked about mentorship or promotions or training. Nobody really talked about education. Would any of you guys want educational opportunities? I mean, you guys are in school now, so I don't know if that really interests you to get out and have opportunities to take classes or things like that.
But I think having education would be good if you transfer the job. Like if you have like more knowledge, then I mean, like yeah, we might transfer the job later, and that education might help our future like opportunities, I think.
Sure. I mean, I know someone who's looking at a job now that it offered to give him, the salary is a little low, but they're offering him a free MBA if he stays for 2 or 3 years. And that's a big benefit. You know, he might take a lower salary because of that. Those are possible rewards. Okay, so let's keep going. Equity factors, there's really nothing to say here except external and internal equity, which we've already talked about. External is between different companies for a similar job. Internal is in this company, are people making a comparable amount of money? So that's pretty much where we got to in the video. So now let's go beyond that because we still have time and I won't keep you guys late today. So let's talk about now an example of how we would actually conduct a job evaluation and set pay rates. So of course, we have to start with this position evaluation, just like a job analysis. That's where we start. We have some sort of measurement of the job's duties relative to the job description standards that we already set. And the reason we want to do this is for the big key word in the next part of this PPT. And this is what you need to know. And this is relative worth. That 100% will be on the final exam. This, what we're going to talk about now for, about the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes, this idea of relative worth, I guarantee you will be on the final exam because this is a really important idea. And I have to say, sometimes people find it a little confusing. So I want to cover it now, and then we'll review it. I'll bring an example to next class at the beginning, like we did with the evaluations. So we start with this sort of job analysis, job description, job specification, job requirements matrix, competency model, this way of looking at what responsibilities does this employee have, what are their duties, things like that. This could be our internal measure of job worth with outside market value. But this, whatever it is that we think is important for this job, this is the foundation, right? This idea of a job analysis, because we need the rates to be fair and reasonable. So our foundation is looking at the job analysis, and we start now to get this new idea that we haven't talked about yet in HR of worth. So the only time we talked about this so far was in that 4x4 matrix. Chloe, can you now remind me, what is the 4x4 matrix about?
The 4x4 matrix is a table where you evaluate the people, but due to their job position and their experience and skills, some of the people are going to get better salaries, even though the evaluation doesn't fit in.
Okay. Jody, can you help us expand on that a little? She said experience and duties and responsibilities, but to me that sounds like a normal evaluation. Like in a normal evaluation, we learned there are 3 kinds of evaluations. Hey, Chloe, what are the 3 kinds of evaluations?
Sorry, what?
The 3 kinds of evaluations, the 3 categories.
I know the names of the evaluation, but I don't know what you mean by the type.
Okay. Anais, can you tell us the 3 categories of evaluations?
Is it qualitative, quantitative, and
what's the third one? Anybody?
Based? I don't.
Ranking.
Thank you. Ranking. Quantitative is numbers. Qualitative is opinions, and ranking is order. Qualitative, quantitative, and ranking. Now, Jody, tell us a little bit about the 4x4 matrix. We just did that 4x4 matrix thing. What is that about?
What I remember is the evaluation. Same like
Well,
Chloe.
the evaluation, we have lots of different kinds of evaluations. We have a bunch of them are quantitative, a bunch of them are qualitative, and a bunch of them are ranking. We learned 12 different kinds of evaluations. That's not the 4x4 matrix. Constance, can you tell us?
The 4x4 matrix represents like a qualitative type of job, like what you have to do if you like how you did it. A ranking.
No.
Would it represent the value of the person?
Thank you. That's the
value,
key
yes.
word. Is value. Right? This is the idea that Constance, maybe you got a wonderful evaluation. Let's say we did a qualitative evaluation for Constance, and your boss wrote an essay about you and wrote, Constance is just the nicest person. She always comes on time. She's always prepared for work. She's very nice to the customers. Everybody likes Constance. I strongly think she should be promoted, all this great stuff. Now that's great. And let's say that you're a new salesperson at our company and you got a better evaluation than Juan. Juan is the director of marketing. So Constance, are you going to make more money than Juan because you got a better evaluation?
No, because my statue is not as
your
necessary.
value.
Value.
Your value to the organization, not your value as a person, You know, everybody has value as a person, but your value to the organization just isn't as high as Juan. So even if his evaluation was not as good as yours, that's the idea of the 4x4 matrix. So we looked, and the reason I'm stressing this is this was a little bit different than just looking at evaluations. Evaluations tell you if someone is doing a good job or a bad job relative to the standard that you set in the job description.
Yeah.
Value tells you the importance to the organization. Now, so that's our second idea. Now we have another idea called worth. This is our new idea now in compensation. This says, what are you worth to the organization? So if I said that Juan has more value than Constance to the organization, well, that doesn't sound very good, but you understand that if you're new, you're a salesperson, and Juan is our director of marketing, okay, you understand that he's more valuable. But how much is he worth? How much is Constance worth? We need to have a very clear quantitative idea of worth. So the traditional way to do this is called the Hayguide chart profile method. And this is a method of deciding worth. So what we're going to talk about, you know, for today and for the next class is worth. So really there are three areas that help us to decide the worth of the employee. Number one is knowledge, also called know-how. And that has to do with your technical knowledge. So let's say that Juan is the director of marketing. Juan has all kinds of knowledge about marketing. He has a master's. He knows how to put together a marketing proposal that we can send to companies. He knows how to make a marketing budget. He knows how to hire teams of people to shoot commercials, or he knows how to edit video. He has lots of technical knowledge. He knows how to work on social media. And maybe Constance, who's our new salesperson, she doesn't have that knowledge. So that's one factor in worth. Another has to do with skills, right? Remember, we talked before about KSAO. So we have K, we also have S, skills. And these skills have a lot to do with organization and planning, right? Remember, this is still management, so we still have the idea of FAIL, of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So planning and organizing skills have a lot to do with work. If somebody has really good planning skills, they can plan a large marketing promotion. They can plan a 3-month process. That's a very valuable skill. There's worth in that. Next is communication and what you could call negotiation, right? This is also a kind of skill. Your ability to communicate, your ability to negotiate are also valuable skills. The next part of your worth, and this is just the Hayguide method, it's not the only method, but this is a method. The next part has to do with your ability to solve problems. So if we have a new salesperson, does she need to constantly be thinking all the time? Maybe not. She needs to be good at communicating. She needs to be good at influencing. That would be very important for Constance, these skills. Does she need to know how to fix a car to sell a car? No. Does she need to know how to plan a marketing campaign to sell a car? No. But she needs communicating and influencing skills. So kind of 1 out of 3. Some people need to be in an environment where they're thinking all the time. Other people are in an environment with a great amount of challenge, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and that can be very challenging. So as a teacher, for example, I need to have communicating skills, but I do not really need to have influencing skills. I don't need to influence you to study. Some students do, some don't. Some get better grades, some get worse grades. I do need planning and organizing skills. I need some technical knowledge. School is a thinking environment, but it's not really a thinking challenge, right? I'm trying to better understand my subject, but I'm not under incredible time pressure. Now, when I was a lawyer, that was a thinking challenge. You have a case and it is going to court in 1 week or 2 weeks, and you have to do all of this work. And that was more of a thinking challenge. Then number 3 is your accountability. That is another word for responsibility. Responsibility has to do with how much independence do you have, because jobs with more independence usually do get paid more. The magnitude and the impact. So the magnitude is the amount of people you affect, right? If I'm teaching a class that has 5 people versus I'm teaching a class that has 500 people, that might be a difference in my salary. Because one teacher who can teach 500 students, that kind of class, might be worth more to the college than a teacher who really is only comfortable teaching 5 people. And we can understand why that teacher would be worth more. Does that mean the teacher knows more? No, not necessarily, but they have a larger magnitude. And then there's impact. So a teacher who only teaches 5 students, but each of these students is an incredibly gifted student who's going to go on and open their own companies or write thesis papers that they'll publish, that might have an impact that's very deep. It might not be very large, it might not be a big group of people, but it might be a powerful impact. And that can be very valuable too. You definitely want people in your organization who are very impactful. So in the Hay Guide method, these are some things that we consider when we're looking at relative worth. And I haven't told you yet how to really establish that, but these are just the things we're looking at. Is that clear? So a basic idea of how to use this, we would start with our job descriptions. We already know that. We would look at where these jobs fit. And then here's the key idea of the Hay Worth Guide. We're going to measure each job's critical components: the know-how, the problem solving, the decision making, all of these things that we just looked at in the Hay Guide. We're going to measure these, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The key idea is that we're putting in points. So I said this is quantitative. What we ultimately want is we want a score. So if Constance is a new salesperson and Juan is our director of marketing, we would like, let's say out of 100, to be able to say Juan's relative value to our company is 86. And the Constance's relative value is 66. We want numbers that determine relative value. And so that's what we're talking about, is how do we get these points? How do we get these numbers? Once we have the numbers, then it's easy to rank people. Once we've ranked people, then we validate this by making sure that if you have a high score, you met your benchmarks. You know, if you are valuable to our company, well, okay, but did you achieve your KPIs, your key performance indicators? Did you achieve all of the things in your annual or semi-annual goal setting meetings? So we need to make sure before we can assign these points that we do have our benchmarks. So we understand what a benchmark is. You only really need 2 to 3 benchmarks in order to test the validity. We don't need 100 different benchmarks. So if Juan, for example, is the director of marketing, what could be a benchmark? What would be a good thing that a director of marketing needs to achieve to prove that he's doing a good job? Maybe it would be customer satisfaction. Camila, can you think of anything else that would help us determine if a director of marketing is doing a good job?
Well, I think in general, if he's helping to achieve the business goal,
sure,
like by customer satisfaction or by the customer approaching.
Sure. So maybe one other thing would be the number of projects he did. Let's say we're doing this every 6 months. So how many projects has he worked on in 6 months? 1 project or 5? Maybe our benchmark is we expect 3. That's our benchmark. And for all 3 projects, we expect a level of customer satisfaction that is 85% or higher. And we also expect, I'd say, a level of employee satisfaction, that the employees are satisfied to be working with one. You know, there's a bunch of different things we could have for one. Now, would those be the same benchmarks for Constance, who just became a salesperson? Maybe not. Nicola, what do you think would be some good benchmarks for Constance, for a salesperson?
The number of sales,
Sure.
definitely. I mean, the first one. Also, I think I don't know if the like post sales would be a good benchmark. You
What do
know,
you
like
mean post sales?
Yeah, I like after sales, like if clothes is available to customers.
Okay, well, I guess that would be
I don't
customer
know.
satisfaction.
Yeah, definitely. But
Whether or not she
definitely
provides
it's
good
the
after sales service. I think another
definitely the
benchmark
number
might
of
be,
sales.
another benchmark might just be positive attitude. If I was her
Yes.
manager, that I think is pretty important for a salesperson. Now, is positive attitude an important benchmark for the director of marketing? Maybe not. Maybe he's a difficult person to work with, but I don't care about that. I care about the fact that he runs our 25-person marketing department. You know, so we have these benchmarks first of what we consider to be good performance for each of these jobs. And then we have 5 steps. So I won't take you beyond this today, but let's talk about these 5 steps. 1, we start with a salary survey. And a salary survey essentially is the same thing as external equity, right? We have to make sure, what are people earning at other companies who are doing the same job? Next, of course, is internal equity. And here's where we start to establish the relative worth. How valuable are you to our company? Now, when we say internal equity, it doesn't mean that everybody in the company is paid the same. Am I as valuable to CIP as Anselm is, or as Peter is, or as Eileen is? You know, we all have different values, and that makes sense. Now, if Anselm has been with this company since the very beginning, and he knows the dean of the university, and he brings other universities in as partners, and he has all this benefit to the university, is it okay with me that you know, he earns more than I do? Sure, that would be okay. Because if he's more valuable to the university, that would make sense. Now, if somebody was less valuable, then they shouldn't earn more than me. But this idea of more valuable or less valuable can be very, very sensitive. And that's one of the reasons we really want to quantify this. If Anselm is earning more than me, I would want to know why. Also, we should pretty much acknowledge that this is also a perfect, really nice oval here. Really getting the hang of these ovals. Really happy about that. So we want to make sure that in the organization, if an employee comes to HR and says, I think this other person is earning more than me and I want to know why, HR can explain why your score is 68 and this other person's score is 73, and that's why they earn more. Then we're going to put the jobs into pay grades. This was the idea of ranges we talked before. Each pay grade will use a wage curve, which is where we can mathematically establish the top of the grade to the bottom of the grade. And then we'll take the wage curves and we'll develop rate ranges. And once we have that, now the ability to do these 5 steps would give you the ability to establish pay rates for pretty much any size corporation, because grades, curves, and ranges are used mostly in larger companies. In a smaller company, you still want to know how to do a salary survey and a relative worth analysis. So, okay, we'll stop there for today. So I won't bring in an example yet. I'll wait until we finish these things. Any questions?
Yeah, one small question. You were talking about before about 4 equity factors. there is a procedural and directional, yeah.
So there's procedural equity, there is distribution or distributive
Yeah,
equity, there is distributive, procedural, substantive,
internal and external.
internal and external. I thought there was substantive and something else, but okay. So just talking about those. So we understand internal and external, right?
Yeah, I
Okay,
just wanted
so-
to know the difference between
Sure.
procedural.
Let's just make sure we understand those. So external is about between company A and company B. Internal is the people in company A. Distributive and procedural. So distributive comes from this idea of distribution, right? If I give more money to one person than to another person, which is similar to the idea of internal, people want to know why one person is getting more, but it's not just more. Let's say that Christine and Chloe both work, they're both teachers in my school, and I pay Chloe at the 30th of the month, and I didn't pay Christine until the 1st of next month. There's a problem with the distribution. They're getting paid differently. So it's not just about, are they getting more or less? What if for Chloe, I pay her to her PayPal account in America, and to Christine, I pay her cash in RMB? There's a distribution problem. Now, it doesn't need to be the same, but there has to be some fairness there, some level of justice that Chloe
So like
could
the
say.
time also impact.
Sorry?
So like the time also impacted to the internal equity.
Maybe.
The distribute.
Maybe, what if Chloe wants to get paid on the 20th and I usually pay people on the 1st and she wants to get paid on the previous month? Well, so I agree. I say, okay, Chloe, no problem. I'll pay you on the 20th because she has to pay her rent on the 25th. And I'm still paying Christine on the 1st of each month. And then Christine gets angry. She hears about this. She sees Chloe getting her check and she gets angry. I need to have dealt with that already, because things don't get distributed evenly. What if this coming month there is a big conference that somebody can go to, and I let Christine go to this conference, and it's in California? And the reason I did it is because Christine's from California and she already had an airplane ticket that her parents bought her. Chloe doesn't know that. You know, they're getting different distributive. It's different. So that's the distribution of what you give to people. You know, how do you give it? Do you give it in cash? Do you give it to PayPal? Do you give it on Monday? Do you give it on like this? How? It's not just about the amount. Procedural equity is the procedure or the process of, am I open with them about why they get paid differently or they get paid at different times? If Chloe makes more than Christine and Christine says, David, I'd like to know, does Chloe make more? And I said, Christine, you know, that's none of your business. That is not procedurally fair. Because what it says to Christine is, the procedure that I have for deciding how much she gets paid and Chloe gets paid is a secret procedure. I won't tell her because it's a secret procedure. Nobody trusts that. It doesn't mean I have to put a board on the wall with everybody's salary, but my procedure, and that's in fact what we're going to talk about next class with these 5 steps. There needs to be a very clear procedure, so that if Christine comes to me and says, David, I'm unhappy with my salary, I know Chloe earns more than me, I can say, okay, let me take this out. Let me explain to you why Chloe's score is a 76 and your score is a 72. And if you want to earn what she earns, here's how you get from 72 to 76. So the procedure of how this is distributed is also very clear.
Okay,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Good. Any other questions? Okay. Well, then, Christine, you are the new host. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Is there chats here? I don't speak French. OK avec des Chinois, un plaisir. Les chats sont pas privés. Privés. Haha. Ils vont rien comprendre. Haha. Ils, we, vont. I don't know, vont. Rien is laugh. We, something, laugh, understanding. Les chats, isn't that cats?
It's also chat, like the same meaning as chat in English.
The chats sont pas privés, are not private.
Yes.
Okay. Oui. Que avec des Chinois. Que, what with the Chinese? Oh, God, my French is so bad. What is partage?
Sharing?
Sharing.
To you share ton appart.
Your apartment.
Apart is a shortened way for apartment.
Okay, so that's just slang. Okay.
Your reading is actually pretty good.
I studied French. I'll stop recording here.